But the fight between factions in our party has taken a sharp turn in recent weeks, with ads mocking other candidates and with supporters of some candidates shouting curses at other Democratic candidates. These harsh tactics might work if you are willing to burn down the rest of the party in order to be the last man standing. They might work if you don't worry about leaving our party and our politics worse off than how you found it. And they might work if you think only you have all the answers and only you are the solution to all our problems.
So what you just heard there was Elizabeth Warren speaking last night after her extremely disappointing New Hampshire primary results. Bernie Sanders won New Hampshire last night, but Buttigieg and Klobuchar have a lot of positive narratives they can build from the primary. But for Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren, who fell below polling expectations, fell into the single digits, and will leave New Hampshire without a single delegate, last night was an unmitigated disaster. And in that moment, Elizabeth Warren could have said a whole lot of things, but she chose to devote a significant portion of her speech last night to attacking Bernie Sanders and his supporters. Now, she doesn't say Bernie by name here, but she doesn't have to. It's very clear she's attacking Bernie Sanders. It's very clear that she's suggesting that Bernie Sanders and his supporters are being uncivil, that they're attacking and profaning other Democratic candidates, that they think that only they have all the answers and that they are arrogant because of it, and that they are doing damage to the country, to political discourse, and to the health of the Democratic Party because of this arrogance and this lack of civility. This is extremely disappointing to hear from Elizabeth Warren. This is a woman who I had such great respect and admiration for. And I did feel that she would have been a fantastic option outside of Bernie Sanders. That if Bernie Sanders, for whatever reason, would not have found success in this race, that he would have endorsed Warren and I would have shifted support to her as well. But now we see that Elizabeth Warren, in the pursuit of power, isn't the same person she was, or she's finally revealed who she's been all along. She's flip-flopped on her support for Medicare for All. She's lied about what Bernie Sanders said to her in a private conversation. She's used multiple instances in front of the media to attack Bernie Sanders, trying to goad him into conflict with a hot mic. And when she's had the opportunity to criticize neoliberals on their record, such as Joe Biden on bankruptcies on debate stages, she's failed to do it. Elizabeth Warren has demonstrated that she's putting her own faint chances of becoming president ahead of building a progressive alliance with Bernie Sanders. And it's extremely disappointing to see that. We have to remember that Bernie Sanders has been a longtime ally and supporter and champion of Elizabeth Warren. That Elizabeth Warren is still, on many policies, well to the left of the Democratic Party Senate and Congress base, and often Bernie Sanders was one of her few allies. And if we go all the way back to 2015, when Bernie Sanders ran for president, he didn't even really want to do it. Bernie Sanders always thought that Elizabeth Warren may have been a better choice than him to do it, and he was saying that as early as 2013. Bernie Sanders would have 100% supported Warren and endorsed Warren if the scenarios were flipped, and this is how she treats him. It is unacceptable, it is disappointing, and I know that Bernie Sanders personally is probably deeply hurt by how Elizabeth Warren has treated him and his supporters. I know that because Bernie Sanders would never do that to Elizabeth Warren. And despite all of her attacks on him and despite her lies about him, Bernie Sanders has continued to be positive about Warren and her contribution to the political discourse. Elizabeth Warren is done in this campaign. She is done and dusted. She had a decent performance in Iowa, but a failure of performance in New Hampshire. She does not have strong national numbers. She is not strong among racialized people. She will not have good results in Nevada, and she will not have a good result in South Carolina. Bernie Sanders has captured the progressive imagination, and none of the neoliberals are willing to move to Warren. And even in key demographics that Warren succeeded in, such as among middle class and college educated white women, Amy Klobuchar appears to be absorbing those people as she did in New Hampshire, which is one of the reasons why she did so well and Elizabeth Warren did so poorly. There's no path forward for her. The only thing Elizabeth Warren can do right now to ensure that some of her policies actually get implemented in the next 4 years or so is to endorse Bernie Sanders. She needs to drop out. Bernie Sanders is winning right now. Bernie Sanders is the frontrunner right now. He's projected by sites like 538 to win the most delegates, even with Elizabeth Warren in the race. But the reality is that Bernie Sanders may well fall short of winning enough delegates to avoid an alliance of neoliberals and superdelegates stealing the nomination. If Elizabeth Warren wants to prevent that and actually does believe in the grassroots of the party and in progressive policy, she needs to drop out. She needs to endorse Bernie Sanders, and frankly, she likely needs to offer an apology to him and his supporters for how she slandered them in the media over the past few weeks and months. If she does that, it will give Bernie Sanders a crucial edge. But here's the thing, and I'm speaking to Warren supporters. Again, I have an immense amount of respect for you. And I have an immense amount of admiration for you. And unlike when I hear people supporting any of the other candidates, and I'm thinking to myself, why the hell would you do that? I deeply understand why so many good left-leaning people went to Elizabeth Warren. But her time is done now. She cannot win. And giving Warren your support is increasing the odds of a Buttigieg or a Bloomberg becoming the nominee. And I know Elizabeth Warren does not want that. She does not want a billionaire or the most popular candidate among billionaires to become the nominee. And even though she might stick in the race because she feels she still has a chance, it's time that her supporters, her volunteers, her donors, to move to Bernie Sanders. We can't wait for Elizabeth Warren to make the right decision. And guys, I'm really sad to say it, I don't know if she'll make the right decision. I worry that she'll endorse someone else, or I worry that she'll drop out and not endorse anyone. It's time that Elizabeth Warren's own supporters realize that whatever she said about Bernie and his people, Bernie Sanders is still the best person in this race to carry on Warren's message on fighting corruption, on taxing the rich, on big structural change, on building an economy that works for working class and middle class people. Only Bernie Sanders is doing that. Elizabeth Warren had such great potential, but she's been extremely disappointing. But her opportunity to rectify that isn't over yet. She can endorse Bernie. She can get behind the movement. She can work with him, likely in his administration, because despite how she's treated Bernie, I guarantee you Bernie Sanders would still have her be in his cabinet. And if Warren won't do it, I know her people will.